We are first introduced to Staz, a vampire living in the demon world. He is the boss of his territory in hell. He is an otaku, obsessed with human culture, but most specifically Japanese culture. Soon after, his head enforcer Deku calls Staz to tell him that a young woman, Fayumi, has wandered into the demon world, into Staz territory. Instead of killing her, as Deku suggests, Staz eagerly has Fayumi brought to his room. He instantly feels what he calls attraction to her, not only the romantic liking of her, but his vampiric instinct to suck her blood. While this is happening, a man is gathering a crowd advertising his business to sell large plant-like creatures. Although Deku quickly picks out the man and tells him he needs to have permission to do business Staz territory. However, the plant seller's true intentions are to battle Staz for the control of his territory. Staz is alerted of this by Deku, and after much urging from Fayumi, he goes down and the plant seller throws massive attacks at him. But the battle is short-lived because Staz is an incredibly powerful monster. He uses a devastating technique called heart compression zip, where he smashes the heart of his enemy from a distance. The challenger is completely destroyed, along with his carnivorous plants. However, while this had happened, one of the murderous plants came up to Staz's room, where Fayumi was, and ate and killed her. Staz is devastated. However, Fayumi reappears in his bed. Deku explains that when a human dies in the demon world, a transformation into a ghost begins. Staz then vows to bring her back to life, even though he does not yet know how to go about this. Fayumi then remembers how she arrived in the demon world, through a portal between the human world and the demon world called the Black Curtain. The appearance of this Black Curtain is very strange, because it is supposed to have closed once its owner had successfully traveled through it. Staz then decides he wishes to go to the human world along with Fayumi. They then travel to see Mami and Sadie in the cafe Third Eye. When there, Staz asks the owners of the shop, Mami and Sadie, what they should do about the human world. After Mami and Sadie use their combined third eye to analyze the situation they are in, Mami tells Staz that though Fayumi's existence is unstable, she should be fine. While there, Deku comes and introduces Mimic Yoshida to Staz, who wishes to join Staz gang. Yoshida is, as the name implies, a mimic who can transform his appearance into whoever he wants. When Staz and the others get into a predicament about how Staz will remain the territory boss if he travels with Fayumi, they realize Yoshida is able to take Staz's place. With this, it seems that the preparations for traveling to the human world are complete. We see our protagonists passing through the Black Curtain. After passing through the curtain, they are transported into Fayumi's room in the human world. Soon after, Staz decides he wants to leave, and on the way out of her house, the two run into Fayumi's father, Yanagi. Yanagi quickly questions where Fayumi has been since she went missing, and why she returned with a boy. To avoid further confusion, Staz sprays Yanagi with his saliva, which has his vampiric magic inside. By doing this, he is able to control the person without actually biting them. Because of this, Yanagi quickly dismisses Staz's appearance and welcomes them both home. At the same time, a mysterious person also travels into Fayumi's room through the curtain. Afterwards, Fayumi and Staz arrive at Fayumi's high school. After a little time there, Fayumi begins to realize her situation as a ghost. When she speaks to her friends, their memories begin to clash, and soon she is noticed less and less. As the weight of the situation begins to affect her, Staz returns to her and points out that she is starting to disappear in this world. Her legs and arms begin to fade, and she is literally disappearing. In order to keep her safe, Staz allows Fayumi to take some of his magic by having her drink a drop of his blood. He again vows to always keep her safe. Though the magic is initially too powerful, Fayumi quickly turns back to her normal ghost self. Soon afterwards, Staz decides it's time to return to the demon world, so that he can regain enough energy to later travel to Akihabara. Staz then questions the whereabouts of Fayumi's mother, and we learn that she does not know. As they return to Fayumi's room, they are met by Belle Hydra Belle, a treasure hunter and sorceress of spatial magic. She introduces herself and explains that she knows that Mimic Yoshida is replacing Staz in the demon world, since she is able to see in any part of space as long as a frame is created to look through. Belle tells the two that she is the owner of the Black Curtain, and that she is trying to figure out the mystery of why she left her curtain open, even after she put it away properly. Belle then decides that Fayumi and Stas must pay a fine for using her curtain, and she decides to pay a total of 60 million yen. However, the two obviously think that's ridiculous, so Belle quickly punishes them by transporting Stas to a random street in the human world, while Belle hangs on to Fayumi and threatens to kidnap her if Stas does not retrieve a certain item for her. Stas then travels down to the store Oniklo and meets the store owner. Because Belle only told him he would know the item when he gets there, Stas questions the store owner and is quickly led to a special room. To Stas' surprise, the prized item is a pair of ogre undies, and he must battle the store owner in order to get them. In the meantime, Belle is explaining to Fayumi that the curtain she put up is no longer hers, and it was stolen from her by someone very powerful. Because of this, she is not able to put the curtain away and is instead looking for the person who did it. This is why she made Stas fight the store owner, to see just how powerful he is. Back in Uniqlo, Stas quickly and easily defeats the store owner with one punch, throwing him in the air. Belle appeared and said he was very strong. However, she knew after an explanation by Fayumi that he did not steal the curtain. However, she does know of something that may help Fayumi return to life. She mentions the Book of Human Resurrection and says that it is in Wolf's territory, an old enemy or friend of Stas. The three then decide to go and retrieve it. Stas and his crew decide they must travel to the western part of Hell in order to retrieve the Book of Human Resurrection. Because they do not want it to look like the start of a territory battle between Stas and Wolf, they decide to call upon the Chicken Brothers, the fastest transportation in the demon world. Though they run fast, they are very slow at counting money. After they finish counting their pay, the Chicken Brothers take Stas, Fayumi, and Mommy quickly to the Western Territory. During the ride, Stas orders Mommy to use his third eye to navigate a path to Wolf with the fewest run-ins with others. However, Mommy quickly realizes that at the speed they are going, they will run head-on into Wolf and his two companions. Wolf and two companions, who soon see the carriage approaching, also realize they are on a collision course. Despite this, Wolf calmly uses his brute strength to slice the carriage in half, but fortunately without injury to the passengers. After quick introductions from the two longtime friends, Stas learns that Wolf does not have the book. Instead, he asks Wolf to aid his search by using his influence over the territory. But to do this, Stas will have to win a competition between him and Wolf. After hearing this, Fayumi is worried about the outcome. It seems like Wolf has decided on the prize if Stas loses. However, Stas explains that the competition will be a bowling match, and with his magic that can affect things at distances, he will be able to control the ball to his liking. They then go to begin the match with Wolf and realize that Stas misheard, and the competition is actually boxing. Because of Wolf's physical magic affects his strength, Wolf is at a clear advantage. The match soon begins, and Stas is quickly showing signs of losing. After a few minutes of getting beaten up, something happens to Wolf that causes him to become fatigued. Earlier in the match, Stas had grabbed onto Wolf and used this chance to bite Wolf and leave his tooth pierced into his skin. During the whole match so far, Stas has been using his magic to drain Wolf's magic. In a turn of events, Stas easily begins to take the lead, and with this, Wolf is forced to turn into his half-werewolf form. Wolf points out that Stas still heavily relies on his magic and abilities. With this, Stas becomes increasingly angry, and he uses his heart compression zip to almost kill Wolf, but stops due to a strong slap from Fayumi. As Fayumi begins to cry due to the two friends' fight, Belle suddenly jumps in and transports Stas, Wolf, and Fayumi to what seems like an abandoned warehouse. While there, Wolf revealed that Belle was the one who changed the bowling match to a boxing match after informing Wolf how Stas would cheat. Belle then appears, after transporting Wolf's two companions and Mommy along with him, and refuses to tell them why she is manipulating them, but as compensation, she gifts the three with the Book of Resurrection. After he gets his hands on the book, Stas opens it, and they all start to read it, but there's one problem. None of them can understand a word of it. It's not because they cannot read it, but because the whole book is written in a huge word-based anagram, as said by Mommy. In other words, even if they knew how to decipher it, it would take an excessive amount of time. So they decide to just go and ask the person who wrote it themselves instead. But Stas does not get along with the author, his elder brother, Blo0d L D. The Demon World Acropolis is a highly prestigious residence only for demon kings who have conquered every territory. This place is where the kings watch the territory and where rules and laws are made. It is also where Braz, the brother of Stas, resides. In order to question him about the human resurrection, Stas will have to travel there. However, Stas's reluctance to visit Braz in the Acropolis. This enrages Wolf, who forces him to finish that which he had started, while also threatening Bel to use her spatial magic to take Stas to Acropolis. Wolf then kicks Stas into a newly opened portal, where he ends up in Bel's bedroom. Here, Bel once again tries testing Stas, but he instead questions her true motive. Bel reveals that Stas's magic acts as though it leaks out of a seal, prompting him to explain his history to Braz. Stas explains that when he was younger, Braz conducted numerous torturous experiments on him for the purpose of sealing away his magic, which Braz had managed by shooting a bullet directly into his heart, thus creating a seal that only he could remove. Upon learning this, Bel finally confirms that Stas isn't the magic thief, since he simply wasn't powerful enough to steal her black curtain, but this only makes her more curious about Stas's true power. Bel then tries to provoke Stas by locking him in her spatial grid room until he promises to have Braz remove the seal. Stas agrees and states that when his seal is removed, he will use his full magic power and actually steal her spatial magic. Afterwards, Bel treats Stas to sushi and begins falling for him against her better judgment. Meanwhile, back in the demon world, Fayumi's body starts vanishing once more, prompting Wolf to hurriedly take her to the mad scientist, Frankenstein. Finally, Bel takes Stas to Acropolis and decides to cause some trouble to force him into breaking the magical seal. Stas decides to sneak into Braz's castle, but ends up being caught by his little sister and warden of the demon world, Blo0d, who had disowned him because of his betrayal. Due to a long-time hatred of Stas after he ran away, she quickly uses her axe to impose a judgment impact on him, and Stas is sent to a cell in Liz's prison, nicknamed Liz Toy Box. Inside the cell, Stas notices a button, and he is tricked by the other inmates to press the button. He has initiated a challenge, which opens to a corridor. After being led to another room, Stas once again encounters Liz, who explains that a prisoner can leave at any time they wish, provided they can defeat her zombie subordinates in battle, a feat that not a single inmate has yet to accomplish. Liz's zombies easily defeat Stas, although he repeatedly challenges them with the same result. Meanwhile, Franken deduces that Fayumi's condition can be stabilized with a dose of Stas's blood. He further explains to Wolf that ghosts have the unique ability of becoming a single demon species by absorbing their magic, digressing that if Fayumi absorbs all of Stas's magic, she may be able to rival another demon. Back in Acropolis, Braz learns of Stas's arrival, and the Blood family reunites, with the former refusing to help Stas. After a little sibling rivalry involving Liz's envy of Braz's preference for Stas, Braz proposes Stas with a deal. Meanwhile, Bel reveals to an angered Wolf of Franken's hidden intention of using Fayumi to combat a failed experiment called Artificial Demon No. 9, a Kimpapraden, a monstrosity he created using bodily pieces of other demons. Seeking stronger parts, however, Akim escaped from Franken's laboratory and began hunting demons. Wolf makes a deal with Franken that, should he defeat Akim, he will return Fayumi to being a regular ghost. Simultaneously, Braz explains the same matter to Stas, proposing to teach him the resurrection spell should he help defeat Akim, which the latter refuses. Braz continues that after unlocking Stas's tremendous magic power via his experiments, he was forced to seal it until a time when Stas could properly wield it. Refusing to have the seal removed, Braz has Liz's zombies beat Stas to the point of having to use his true power. Meanwhile, with Bel's help, Wolf arrives at the North District in his search for Akim and engages in a battle with the territory's boss. However, much to Wolf's horror, Akim suddenly appears by grotesquely ripping through the boss. Finally, as the zombies overwhelm Stas, Braz removes the bullet seal, awakening Stas's true power, and thus allowing him to easily eradicate the zombies. With his power now unlocked, Stas reluctantly leaves Acropolis to face Akim as per Braz's deal with him. Meanwhile, Wolf and Akim begin their battle, with the latter specializing in spatial magic. Much to Wolf's shock, Akim reveals that he is merely a demon phantom manipulating the dead pieces of a physical body via magic. Wolf then releases the magic stored in his pipe and enters into a full werewolf transformation. Meanwhile, Bel traps Franken in the grid room, forcing him to reveal everything about Akim's spatial magic. Meanwhile, Wolf and Akim engage in fierce hand-to-hand combat, with the former supposedly emerging victorious after using his claws to slice Akim to pieces. At the same time, Stas shows up just as Akim starts putting his body back together and enters the battle by knocking Akim into the northern wasteland before switching with Wolf, whose magic completely running out. Now that Stas and Akimu are in a wasteland away from the city, Akimu says he can now fight him to the fullest extent. Stas unleashes a barrage of magical punches against Akim, none of which connect. Akimu states that Stas' fighting skill is ugly and reckless, and he doesn't like it much. To get him to shut up, Stas begins to initiate another skill, one we call imitation Kamehameha. However, he is stopped from finishing the move as Akimu knocks Stas down. Though Stas decides he now must fight with his own moves, which Akimu is happy about, Stas then reveals the true form of his magic, and we are shown Braz narrating the events to Liz. Akimu prepares for Stas's awakened power by opening up a large stitch across his chest to reveal an open mouth, ready to consume Stas and his magic. To prevent them from getting injured, Belle closes the window. She, Fayumi, and Mami were watching the fight through. Belle then goes to run some errands. Back to Stas, Akimu met the power of Stas. As the two clashed, Akimu was blown apart. The two remain with Akimu's severed head in Stas's hand. Akimu has used up all of his remaining power and no longer has the desire to fight. Stas will not allow this and forces Akimu to continue instead of letting him die in satisfaction. Stas then decides to finish off Akimu with his most common move, his heart rip. Though he believes he finished off Akimu, it's shown that Akimu escaped using one of the rings with spatial magic. Afterwards, Wolf approaches Stas and challenges him to a battle. Meanwhile, Belle delivers the pieces of Akim to Franken after having captured him, while attempting to escape Stas's zip and questions them about Akim's spatial magic, learning that Franken had obtained Akim's core body with the spatial magic stolen from her by an unknown third party. Braz and Liz then show up and imprison Franken and Akim in the toy box before approaching Stas, who refuses to fight his friend Wolf with his full power. Finally, Braz asks to meet the girl whom Stas wishes to resurrect. Belle delivers Braz back to Franken's examination room, where Fayumi and Mami wait. As Braz meets Fayumi for the first time, his initial interaction with her angers Stas, prompting him to reject Braz's help and use his temporary method of restoring Fayumi with his own blood. Afterwards, the group heads back to the Third Eye Cafe after Braz makes a request to see Fayumi's original body. Belle also reveals her suspicion of Braz to Stas and gives him a magical bell that would summon her when Fayumi required assistance. Eventually, Braz takes a sample of magic from Fayumi and explains that he should be able to resurrect her by converting her magic into a soul and replacing it inside a replicated body. Having obtained all he needs, Braz leaves for Acropolis while leaving Liz behind, and unbeknownst to Stas, he plans on extracting Stas's magic from Fayumi's sample for his own experiments. Afterwards, Stas shows Liz around the Eastern District and buys her a stuffed animal before returning to the cafe for a bite to eat made by Fayumi. Sometime later, Stas deduces that Braz had forbidden Liz from returning to Acropolis until his experiments were complete and allows her to stay at his place while introducing her to his otaku collection. Meanwhile, a strange blonde man observed the group. Afterwards, Fayumi and Liz start bonding by taking a bath and even sleeping together. The next day, Liz wakes up to a note explaining that Fayumi seems to have left and asks that they not follow her, but Stas and others deduce that she had probably been kidnapped and set out to search for clues. Liz reveals that Braz had planted a tracker on Fayumi, and Stas pleads with her to return to Acropolis and get Braz's help. Liz is leaving, and in return, she says that if he fails to find her, she'll never forgive him. Meanwhile, Mami, Sadie, Yoshida, and Deku obtain a lead on the blonde suspect, who was last seen heading towards the southern part of the demon world. Liz arrives in Acropolis and is immediately confronted by Acropolis policewoman, Constable Burroughs. Burroughs allows her re-entry into the district on the condition that she take her to Braz so that he can be arrested for illegally leaving Acropolis. As Burroughs and Liz arrive at the Blood family estate, we see Braz, Franken, and Akimu in a lab inside the estate. There, Franken and Braz are performing more experiments on Akimu as he is suspended in a large tank. Hearing the doorbell, Braz goes to check who it is, and Braz invites Burroughs inside. She explains that she must take him into custody for committing a crime. She uses her privilege magic, called Underdog Choker. This magic sets a curse on a person, no matter where they go, that prevents them from using any magic. With this, Blo0d then escorts Braz out of the estate. Afterwards, Liz informs Stas that she had failed to locate Fayumi using Braz's equipment, while he is simultaneously approached by a member of the Southern District's tropical territory who takes him to the territory's snowman boss. Here, Stas learns that the blonde-haired man called Nell Hydra lives on the inaccessible dimensional highway. We then flash to see Nell enjoying a bowl of ramen at a restaurant. He then realizes that Fayumi is probably getting hungry, so he looks down to check on her. He can see her through a magic cloth, and through it, we can see he has placed her in his grid room. He then orders another bowl and sends it down to the grid room. The chef then gets mad because Nell stole his bowl. When Nell goes to retrieve it, however, he pulls Fayumi up along with the bowl. This gives her enough time to ring the bell got her 3 times. Nell immediately pushes her back into the room, and at this moment, Belle is suddenly awoken from her sleep. She looks through her space to see where Fayumi is and instead sees Nell. As Nell flees in response to Fayumi's signal, he is intercepted by Belle, where she learns that he was simply running an errand for their mother. Just then, Stas appears and angrily demands that they return Fayumi, prompting Belle to aid her brother and imprisoning Stas in her grid room, hence allowing Nell to escape using spatial magic. Stas begs Belle to let him save Fayumi, and Belle questions why she herself is not enough for him. Stas explains that Fayumi is a one-of-a-kind collector's item that can't be replaced once it's gone. Angered that he doesn't see her any other way, Belle challenges him to a fight, saying that if he wins, she'll take him to Fayumi. They begin the fight, and Belle uses her spatial magic to have a huge advantage over him and is quickly beating him. However, Belle lets her guard down, and Stas takes the opportunity to trap her. Though she ends up slipping from his grasp, her bottom half's clothing is left behind. Belle, now half naked, is hiding inside her magic cube, begging for her clothes back. Stas then realizes something isn't right. He knows that Belle is able to just transport herself back to her room in order to get her clothes, but she hasn't yet, and instead has a very worried face. Stas convinces himself that this must mean her underwear is her greatest treasure. In the meantime, Nell brings Fayumi out of the grid room and into Hydra. Here, they begin to travel across the sky and towards the Hydra's home to meet Nyan. In reality, Belle's bag, which Stas also has with him, contains her special treasure note. Inside, she writes down everything she wishes for, and it happens to include a page with Stas on it. In addition, Operation Get Stas to Love Me was written while she was buzzed. As Stas goes to place the underwear inside the bag, he ends up searching through the items already inside. Belle tries to retrieve the notebook without him noticing, but he then realizes it's what she actually cares about and instead takes it from her. Though he begins to read from it, Belle instead declares defeat, and Stas doesn't continue. As they leave, Belle is frustrated and thinks about how Stas is acting. She doesn't understand why he keeps fighting and protecting Fayumi when she has her arms wide open to him. Seeing her begin to cry, Stas tells Belle that he realized earlier that everything happening had originally been his fault, and that she is allowed to blame him if she wants. Upon arriving at the Acropolis Palace, Braz has a flashback whereby he witnessed the death of his father, the previous king, at the hands of the present Acropolis king, Wolf's father. Braz is still taken to teasing Blo0d, and in return, she uses his glasses as the basis of a nickname. We then meet Goyle, the glasses enthusiast, who is the police chief of his division, with Blo0d being his subordinate. Goyle acts very politely and with respect to Braz, and he escorts him into the palace. Meanwhile, Nell and Fayumi continue to fly through Hydra to meet with Nyan, the Hydra sibling's mother. When they disembark from the fluffy creatures that they were traveling on, the first to greet them is the Hydra family's butler. The most surprising aspect of this encounter is that the butler looks identical to Fayumi's father, but instead, the butler is like a demon version of him. Back at the king's palace, we meet King Wolf in person for the first time as he swings his golf club at the door of magical essence. He greets Braz, and immediately the tension-filled air is felt between the two. We then return to the Hydra estate, where Nell has dressed Fayumi in a more formal dress. As he is speaking of how Belle does not return home often, Belle happens to enter the room with Stas in tow. Fayumi is overjoyed to see Stas, but is suddenly stopped from saying anything by Stas. After some confusion, Belle explains that Stas and her have to pretend to be in a relationship because if Nyan found out that Stas was here to retrieve Fayumi, there would be trouble. So as it remains, Stas and Fayumi are to pretend not to know each other from previously. After everyone has been dressed in nicer clothing, Fayumi is soon called in to see Nyan. Nyan has a rather heartfelt reunion with Fayumi, much to the latter's confusion, while the Hydra butler explains that Braz and Nyan are acquaintances. Because of this, it must mean that Nyan already knows who Stas is. Elsewhere, Wolf Daddy commends Braz on his observational duties in the lower demon world and in aiding the capture of Akim, but finds it suspicious that Akim shares the same appearance as his missing subordinate, Pantomime. Braz nonchalantly admits that he orchestrated the creation of Akim as a declaration of war against him. Wolf Daddy is unaware that Braz is working with Franken to build a stronger body for Akim. Wolf Daddy gives Braz 3 days by which to present his king candidate, after which he will kill them both. As he leaves, Bro0d escorts him to a room for questioning. However, Braz initiates a plan where he bites a scrape onto his finger, which, because of his vampiric magic, instantly begins to regenerate. But because of the collar he is wearing, and because his magic is being used, the collar automatically starts ripping him apart. He screams and tells Bro0d he can't stop it because it's uncontrollable magic, and she takes the collar off of him. With this, he makes his escape after putting Bro0d to sleep with a special leaf to make people unconscious for long periods of time. Soon after, Goyle finds Bro0d, and his anger with Braz quickly manifests into his first dispensation, Angry Spear, dubbed Angra. They then go off in search of Braz, who happens to be low on magic and in need of a place to rest. Meanwhile, Nyan explains the existence of doppelgangers within the human and demon worlds to Stas and others, and that she encountered and fused with her own doppelganger, Fayumi's mother, while on a trip to the human world with a young Belle, hence making the girls sisters. In the meantime, Goyle ends up catching up with Braz. After a small mishap, Braz gets up and calls for Liz's assistance. He then dresses in a disguise and attempts to hide from Goyle until Liz arrives. This does not work in the end, since Angra is able to sense where Braz is. Braz is soon driven into a dead end, but ends up relieving a bit of Goyle's anger as he tries to tell Goyle that he has done nothing to Bro0d, and that the blood he saw was his own. As his anger begins to waver, so does his magic. As Braz figures this out, he uses his own privilege magic, dubbed Blood-Stalker. With this, he is able to manipulate his blood into any form. Braz threatens Goyle that if he does not stop, he will control the blood near Bro0d and cut off her head. As Stas contemplates Nyan's relationship with Fayumi and the bloodlust he gets, he notices there's a difference between Nyan's and Fayumi's bloodlust. He then thinks he's figured it out and suddenly asks Fayumi if she's a virgin. Before he gets an answer, he is instantly transported by Belle to a special dimension with floating islands. Belle and Fayumi then begin to talk about what they just learned. Belle tells her not to worry because, when she's resurrected, Fayumi learns she'll forget everything that's happened to her. Heads Hydra, master of the Hydra territory, confronts Stas. Meanwhile, Deku, Yoshida, and Mami face the tropical territory, which intends to conquer Stas's territory in his absence. Heads explains that after Nyan was formed, she along with himself and Fayumi's father, Yanagi, met to discuss their circumstances. They had a showdown to see who should get Nyan. She can't decide, as she likes both of them. Theoretically, it would be a happy ending if they all lived together, but Yanagi pointed out that it is impossible for humans and demons to live together due to the different worlds. He wants to properly raise Fayumi as a human being. If they cannot do that, he will raise her himself. Those words hit Heads in the heart. In a world where everyone only cared about themselves, he was willing to put his daughter's future ahead of his own. Though Yanagi didn't want to give up his wife too, he told Heads that if he made her unhappy, he would never forgive him. That moment, he never felt so afraid in his life. Heads then proceeds to beat Stas up, and he wants to know why he wants Fayumi resurrected. Stas sincerely claims that he won't know his true feelings for her until she is resurrected. This prompts Heads to sever Nyan's eavesdrop on their interaction, and Heads takes Stas to his cramped room. Stas becomes thrilled and wants to play his video game. Only if he listens first. Heads is willing to let Fayumi go, but on several conditions. The first is to eat some green dumplings. Obviously, he makes him swear to the dumpling that he must obey Fayumi in 2 instances. If they leave here, make sure she has only answered yes for permission. Second, if he is going to drink her blood, do so when she only gives her permission after asking. Heads force the dumpling down his throat. It turns out the curse is just a sleeping dose. Stas's eyes become heavy as Heads goes off to settle his own problem. He goes to see Nain and wants her to respect the decision he has made. He wants Fayumi to be the one who decides her future. Meanwhile, Braz and Goyle talk. Braz said he has no more quarrels with Wolf Daddy because if there is anything that needs to be rectified, it should be from that moment when Wolf Daddy killed his father. Now that Goyle's anger has subsided, Braz can easily kill him, but surprisingly, Goyle freezes him. It is a move that he can only activate if his head is being touched. Suddenly, Liz comes flying down to protect and free her brother. Liz prepares the transportation, and in a blink of an eye, the vampire siblings disappear from Goyle's grasp. Meanwhile, back in the Eastern District, Deku, Yoshida, and Maimjir valiantly repel there would be conquerors, while Wolf receives a letter from Acropolis. Stas wakes up near the Hydra territory's entrance, along with Fayumi. Stas laments the fact that his promise to resurrect Fayumi had done more harm to her than good, but again promises to resurrect her in addition to leaving the Hydra territory should they both be her desire, which she accepts. As Nain and Heads watch Fayumi and Stas's decisions, Heads ponders that Stas will have to become a true hero to face the trials that lie ahead. Meanwhile, a mysterious group of individuals fly to an unknown location aboard a blimp. Thank you for watching till the end, and please don't forget to subscribe. See you next time, and peace out.